Hi and welcome back to the channel. Today we will be recapping a 2021 science fiction action film called The Tomorrow War. The film centers around a biology teacher who gets sent to the future to fight a war against aliens after they have invaded Earth. Intrigued? Well, before we start, make sure you help us out by smashing that like button and subscribing to our channel for more awesome videos like this. Now, let's get into it. Dan Forrester is driving home on Christmas Eve in the year 2022, talking on his phone. He goes over his vast military background, Cal State education, and work as a high school biology teacher in an attempt to persuade the person on the other end of the call to hire him. He walks into his house looking for Miri, his daughter. Dan's wife, Emmy, contacts him to ask for assistance with the visitors, but he says he's busy on the phone. Dan states that working in a laboratory has been a long-time ambition of his, and he believes that he has a good chance of attaining it. Emmy accepts but demands that he promise to watch TV with Miri afterward. Dan nods and excuses himself to continue his conversation on the phone. When Dan steps outside, he is greeted with bad news and is turned down. In a fit of rage, he tosses his paperwork into the trash. Before returning inside, he smacks a mailbox and knocks over a garbage can. Dan returns to the party and sits next to Miri, who is watching a football game. He tries to disguise his dissatisfaction by talking to her about her future instead. Dan encourages Miri to be the best she can be by encouraging her to do what no one else will. Everyone then turns their attention to the football game when smoke appears on the field. The smoke emits bright lights and electricity, and people begin to emerge. The audience begins to worry as a woman emerges from the smoke with an announcement. She explains that she and everyone else who had arrived came from the year 2051, 28 years in the future, when an alien species known as white spikes had invaded and destroyed the majority of humanity. She then calls for assistance, asking people to join the fight against the white spikes. After a few months, the leaders of the world mobilize their armies and send soldiers into the year 2051. Unfortunately, this resulted in a massive loss, with barely a fourth of the original group returning. To make matters worse, barely half of all military personnel are capable of making the transition. Nations eventually agreed to start a global draft in which citizens are drafted into the war effort. With fewer than 20% of people returning from the future, many are protesting the war, claiming that those born in 2022 shouldn't be sent to fight in a conflict that has yet to occur. With resources running out and a fight that appears hopeless, leaving the war is becoming a serious consideration. Governments didn't squander any time in committing crucial military resources to the war effort. Even though they had suffered a significant defeat, they proceeded with their failed strategy. Civilians have even been placed in harm's way, yet governments do not appear to be exploring other options. Although it is unclear whether cars or other massive machines would be able to travel into the future, it appears that only individual infantry will be brought in. Dan is at work teaching his biology class, but he notices that no one is listening. He tries to shake things up by asking the students what they want to discuss, but only Martin raises his hand, indicating that he wants to talk about volcanoes. Another child wonders why they attend school since they all know what will happen in the future. Another student claims that people are sent into the future every week, with little to no effect on the outcome. Dan counters by stating that scientists are needed now more than ever, which is why he continues to teach biology. Dan then receives word that he has been drafted. He then goes to a place where future military personnel evaluate him. They cuff Dan and place his arm in a machine, informing him that it's a test. A soldier notifies him that he meets the conscription standards. Because he can't travel to a future where he's still alive, he'll be dead by 2051 if he meets all the prerequisites. When the woman informs him that he'll die in 2030, he gets confirmation. The surgery proceeds, with Dan hardly comprehending what he has been told since. Dan feels searing pain in his arm as the machine begins. A metal device is attached to his arm when he removes it. He's been told that the device will help him jump through time. Dan was also a squad leader in Iraq 15 years earlier, according to his records. Dan goes to Emmy's job as a therapist after being given 24 hours to settle his affairs. Dan's estranged father, James, who abandoned Dan and his mother a long time ago, is the only person who can help get the family to safety, according to Emmy. Dan pays a visit to James, who has gone off the grid because he doesn't trust the authorities. After an argument, Dan refuses to take any help from his father and accepts his fate. When Dan arrives home, he must inform Emmy and Miri that he has been drafted. They embrace each other and say goodbye. Dan reports to the draft, where he meets Charlie, Dorian, Nora, and Kellen, among others. The draftees are informed about the time-jumping process, as well as the mission strategy. The military leaders tell them that they will land in Miami Beach. Things go wrong when the draftees are dropped far higher than planned, resulting in several deaths and many landing in the water. Dan reports to the Romeo headquarters, which is led by a colonel, who informs the team that the military has launched a blanket bombardment on the area in an attempt to wipe out all living beings. Before the bombs are dropped, she orders the crew to save the lab staff. the team proceeds to the facility, where they discover that the lab crew are dead, but they are able to salvage their findings. The crew is soon confronted by the White Spikes, who have whip-like tails and are quick and dangerous. While on the job, Dan and his crew manage to destroy several White Spikes, but Kellen falls through a tunnel, and Dan tries to save him. The White Spikes are closing in on Nora and Kellen, so they stay behind to repel as many as they can shortly before the military detonate the bombs on the tunnel, killing Nora, Kellen, and the White Spikes. The surviving draftees awaken in a Dominican Republic camp. The Colonel, who turns out to be an adult Murray, is introduced to Dan. Dan has caused her some resentment because he went forward with the draft. She informs Dan that her team has discovered a female White Spike whose physiology could be crucial in bringing the hive down. When the team arrives at the cave where the female is hiding, we can see countless soldiers trying to restrain the Queen White Spike. As this happens, a horde of White Spikes begin to descend on the caves, killing everyone in their path. They are heading for the Queen to set her free. The crew successfully manages to capture the female despite Dan nearly jeopardizing the mission by trying to save Miri. She argues with him and then tells him that after he returned from the draft, he became disillusioned, leaving his family, which is why she dislikes him. The team returns the female to the oil rig, where the jump connection is located, to extract a toxin from her blood that will eliminate all of the White Spikes. Dan and his daughter both work together in the lab to find out which toxin could kill the alien army. Just as they discover the toxin, sirens start sounding, implying that the White Spikes have found them. In the water, we can see thousands of White Spikes heading for the base and scaling the perimeter wall, resulting in another bloodbath. They make their way to the Queen White Spike and release her from her chains. Meanwhile, Murray tries to protect Dan so that he can take the cure back to the year 2022 before the White Spikes invade. They are both on the bridge when the Queen White Spike attacks and forces it to fall. Despite Dan's best efforts, she lets go, allowing her and the Queen to perish. While Dan and the remaining draftees return to the year in which they were first drafted, Dan desperately attempts to go back and save Miri when he returns, but it's pointless because the jump link is now down, making a return impossible. He's also managed to keep the toxin, which they couldn't get out of his grip. Dan has returned to his house. He informs Emmy that he met Miri as an adult and worked with her while talking to her. Emmy speculates that the aliens may not have arrived in 2048 when the invasion began, but rather much earlier. Dan then goes to a pub and meets Dorian, who informs him that he is dying of cancer. Dan inquires about a White Spike claw he kept as a keepsake, and they discover ash from Russia on it. When Dan questions one of his students about volcanic ash, they all conclude that the White Spikes have been on the planet for a long time, hiding under the snow, and are a result of global warming. Dan, Charlie, and Dorian try to get the support of a higher-ranking government official to allow them to go on a mission to Russia, but he refuses. Dan then turns to James for assistance, and the two of them, along with the other soldiers, make it to Russia, where they begin searching for any signs of the alien horde. They stumble across a cave and decide to investigate. It turns out that the ship they arrived on belonged to a different species, which was transporting the White Spikes as cargo to destroy neighboring worlds. They proceed to inject the toxin into the White Spikes, but the aliens become aware of their surroundings and break free from their pods. Dorian sacrifices himself after a fierce battle and detonates a bomb which destroys the White Spike army. Unfortunately, the Queen White Spike managed to escape, and she has her sights set on Dan and James. They try to inject her with poison, but she bites off her arm to stop it from spreading. After James is about to sacrifice himself in order to save his son, Dan injects the toxin into the female's throat and knocks her off a cliff, where she splatters, putting an end to the White Spikes once and for all. The news of the White Spikes' demise spreads, with the government officials taking credit for the group's efforts. Dan reunites with his family, and he introduces Miri to James for the first time, after finally forgiving his father for abandoning him as a kid. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all our latest releases. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.